All right. Good morning. Now, I took some flack for my video yesterday about who are contenders, who are maybe contenders, who are bubble teams. And the number one contender that I had people taking issue with was Tampa. Why would I see Tampa as a contender? Prior to last season, everybody was saying Tampa was going to win the Stanley Cup. I said no. I said no, not because I was smart. I said no because when everybody has a consensus Stanley Cup winner, that team never wins the Stanley Cup. I was told I was wrong. I was told it didn't matter if it was consensus. The Tampa Bay Lightning were the best team in the league. And everybody glowed about how wonderful they were and how great they were and how much depth they had and what a fantastic team it was. Then last season in the first half, they weren't very good. They weren't very good until the last about 25 games of the year. They finished with one loss in regulation in their last 10. They steamrolled through the last 20 games of the season. They finished with the same number of points as the Nashville Predators in the West. But they missed the playoffs. So all people remember is that Tampa missed the playoffs, so they can't be a contender. And down the stretch, I said, if Tampa makes the playoffs and plays Washington, they'll take Washington out. And that I kept saying that all the way through, and I still believe that. I still believe that if Tampa had got in the playoffs, they would have knocked Washington out in the first round. They would have played Pittsburgh in the second round, and we would have seen potentially the greatest upset in the history of hockey if Tampa played Pittsburgh. And it's not because Pittsburgh's not good, and it's not because I'm blinded by Tampa. It's that Tampa was definitely a worthy Stanley Cup contender last year. They had a bad run. They could not recover from the loss of Steven Stamkos as they had the year before. And they lost almost all of their centers at one point during last season. But all people look at is they only got 94 points. They missed the playoffs. So they're not a contender because they missed the playoffs. That's wrong. And then, and I'm using Montreal as the example here. Another team I could use an example for is New York. And fans of both teams have been like, well, wait, why is Tampa up there? Why is New York down in where they are? Lundqvist being a year older and having Pavlich for the backup instead of Ronta, that's a downgrade. And yeah, they got Shattenkirk. They lost Klein. They lost Girardi. And I know Rangers fans are going to talk about how Klein and Girardi were crap. And now they got Brady Shea and he's getting a year. And could all be right. But I still look at the Rangers and say, well, offensively, can Grabner reproduce what he did last season? Probably not. The odds of another almost 30 goal season from Grabner pretty slim. So they're gonna have challenges scoring goals unless JT Miller or Chris Kreider magically overachieve. And what if Matt Zuccarello has some form of market correction? Zuccarello's been fantastic. But if his goal totals and his point totals drop, the Rangers are in trouble for scoring. So that's my reasoning. Now, if we get into this chart that I've got here, red, you've got Montreal, blue, you've got Tampa. So all I did was go through cap friendly and go player by player. So you got Plekanec, you got Drouin, Galchenyuk, Pacioretty, Shaw, Gallagher. Top 6 paid forwards for Montreal. Top 6 paid forwards right now for the Lightning: Stamkos, Callahan, Kucherov, Killorn, Kunitz, and Nemesnikov. But Palat and Johnson are going to get paid. Tyler Johnson, Andre Palat, they're top 6. I can't see any universe in which if you were offered a top 6, you would take Montreal's with Gallagher, Shaw, Plekanec. I know Byron could be in that top 6, and Byron had kind of a career year, but it was a career year. And I can't see Byron reproducing that either. That's just how career years work. Hemsky is no longer a top 6 forward. Stamkos is young, Kucherov's young, Killorn's relatively young, Nemesnikov's still young, Johnson, Palat. It's a young, dynamic forward group. As long as they can stay healthy, as long as Stamkos comes in healthy, and that's the qualifier for this. Stamkos has to be healthy in order for me to say, yeah, Tampa's a contender. But if he's healthy, they are. On the blue line, Weber, Petrie, Alzner, Schlemko, Davidson, Ben, Morrow. That's your top 7. In Tampa, Hedman, Strawman, Coburn, Girardi, Schuster. It has Cuckoo on the website as number 6, but Dotchin, who's buried in the AHL on Cap Friendly, is far more likely to have that number 6 spot. But they have this kid Sergachev they picked up from Montreal, who's supposed to be pretty good. Victor Hedman is one of the best defensemen in the entire National Hockey League. I like Weber, but Hedman is far and above a better defenseman than Weber. You could look at Strawman, Coburn, Girardi, Schuster, and potentially Sergachev, and say that it's a draw with Petrie, Alsner, Schlemko, Davidson, Ben. If I even grant that, Hedman being better than Weber, like Norris Trophy winning better than Weber, that can make a huge difference to a team's fortunes. Now in net, absolutely, I'll give Montreal that. Price, Montoya, better than Vasilevsky and Carl right now is listed on Cap Friendly. Tampa needs to figure out his backup goaltending. Although, no they don't. They kept Budaj. Why isn't Budaj showing up on Cap Friendly as their main guy? Cap Friendly's trying to make me look bad. He must be showing up in their minor league system. Because, yeah, they kept Budaj. So, we'll just go ahead and ignore that. Oh, okay, I was reading the wrong line. Alright. I'll write it in red. Well. So there you go. Vasilevsky and Budaj. I was reading the wrong line. I do that every now and then. Alright, so Vasilevsky and Budaj, I'm still giving Price and Montoya the edge. But if Price gets hurt and Vasilevsky gets hurt, I like Budaj to run things for a while better than Montoya. So, this is why I'm saying, like, you've got, in terms of a prospect in the minors likely to come up and play, you've got McCarron in Montreal. You've got Ernie in Tampa. Probably a saw-off. In terms of breakthrough talent, you've got Laakkonen on Montreal. Could definitely have a big breakthrough season. Braden Point in Tampa, who was deadly down the stretch. Big part of the reason they were 8-1-1 in their last 10 was Braden Point. I'm giving that edge to Tampa. Yeah, you've got some guys in here that are I don't know if JT Brown is a full-time NHLer. I don't know if Condor still qualifies as a full-time NHLer. But in Montreal, you've got Danault's been okay, he's been good, but in terms of scoring, there's a shallow scoring pool in Montreal. You know, Pacioretty can score. Galchenyuk and Drouin, sure. You look at Tampa though, and they can throw out Stamkos, Kucherov, Johnson. As I said, Point's ready for a big breakthrough. In terms of guys who can score and go on nice long scoring binges, Tampa's in better position. Blue line again, Hedman. So I give Montreal the edge in net. I know there was 9 points between them in the regular season this past season. I know that. I'm well aware of that. I'm also well aware of how many teams made the playoffs in 16-17 that didn't in 15-16. And that can reverse in 17-18. Or at the very least, we could throw everybody into a blender and come out with completely different standings this year. So when I talk about who's a contender, I have Tampa in there for a good reason. Their lineup is, when healthy, when intact, one of the best in the league. And I really think that while last summer everybody was saying Tampa was going to win the Cup, then they missed the playoffs, everybody's jumped off that bandwagon. This team could win the Cup this year. The Tampa Bay Lightning could definitely win the Stanley Cup this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they did. I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't. Because it's July. But right now, I like this lineup better than this one. You guys can tell me why I'm wrong in the comment section below. And again, I'm not trying to pick on Montreal. I'm just pointing out that these two teams were in the same division. There was a 9-point spread. And yet, that doesn't tell the whole story. And it doesn't tell the story about which team is going to be stronger this coming season. But we tend to, when we do our predictions, we tend to look at the past season and say, okay, well, this is going to line up. I try really hard not to do that. Because if you just look at last year's standings and say, okay, well, these teams are all going to make the playoffs again, it's safe. You're probably not going to upset as many fans that way, but it's not honest, because odds are there's going to be a number of teams who surprise us next year. Like, people are surprised I have Winnipeg in the maybe contenders category. I watched Winnipeg the last 20 games. If Winnipeg had had goaltending the whole way along last year, they make the playoffs. Dallas. If Dallas had fixed his blue line and goaltending last year, no problem with the playoffs. And the funny thing is, last summer Dallas was seen as a contender too. I was the one arguing that they weren't. I was the one saying, well, until they fix their goaltending, they're not going anywhere. And people said, well, their goaltending is not that bad. We know how that turned out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And we will be discussing more topics along this as the summer goes along. I'll try to find something a little less math-like for other videos today. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.